So welcome guys to the Amaz's monk fan concept. We actually made some monk cards back then. You know, back in way before, like Naxxramas, I think actually. So we updated some cards. We introduced some new cards. We're just gonna go over the whole thing. So people who are actually new to the concept will actually kind of know what's happening. Okay. So my monk design is very simple. It's basically, you know what monk is in WoW, right? It's very fast and nimble. They have actually very combo oriented. They do everything, and every class also needs an identity. Whereas, like for example, mage just flame strikes you, overload for shamans, and then you know demons for warlocks and whatnot. So the identity is very simple. The hero power costs 1, and the keyword is focus. We'll actually explore that a little bit more later. But the playstyle of the monk, generally speaking, is you can manipulate your mana, and you also have a lot of low-cost spells, and a lot of low-cost minions as well. So we're gonna see what kind of cards we have. But first of all, the hero is of course a Chen Storm style, and the hero part is actually pretty interesting. There's actually a rotation of 3. Stagger gives 1 armor. Oh wow, this is pretty loud music actually. Okay, let me just turn that into down first. Okay, so yeah, Stagger is basically the warrior hero power. Tiger Strike is basically the druid hero power, and Soothing Mist is basically the priest hero power. And every time you use something, it changes to something else. And you actually get to choose which hero power you start with when you make your deck. So for example, if you want to build more aggressive, you should go Tiger Strike. If you want to go, who knows? Tiger Strike is definitely the better option. But sometimes you want to start off the heal, so who knows? Anyways, we also have the keyword here. Focus is basically a keyword, and it activates after you have 0 mana after playing a card. So for example, as you can see here, if you play Dragon Turtle, you have 4 mana, it actually activates. So this thing actually happens. And then if you have 2 mana left during a 10 mana turn, and you cast a 2 mana spell, it also activates, because this is exactly fulfilling that requirement. Interesting point is that focus can activate multiple times per turn. So if you have a coin or something, that's actually going to be pretty important as well. Okay, so onwards with the first drop, the monk specific card. It's a 1 mana 2/2 Shadowburn trainee, and the battle cry is to refresh your hero power. Refresh just basically means make it usable again. I guess we could have actually said that, actually phrased it out, right? You can reuse your hero power this turn. It's basically you compare it to Garrison Commander from GvG. Oh, not for GvG, of TGT. I actually made these cards way before TGT was announced. But it's a 1 mana 2/2. If you play it at 1 mana, it's just a 2/2. It's a vanilla 2/2. And to be honest, I really think that there should be a vanilla 2/2 in the game. If you actually want to use this hero power correctly, you actually need to use the hero power and then use this, and then use the hero power again. At that point, this is a 3 mana 2/2. And thank you so much, sub. And by that point, it's basically kind of like an Ironforge Rifleman. So that's basically balanced there. 2 mana drop is Ale Master. If you focus this, so if you play this at turn 2, or if you play this with 2 mana remaining, you get this Tasty Brew, which also focuses. So when you have 0 mana, you can actually gain a coin. This would be very useful if you have a lot of 1 mana stuff in your hand, and you can actually kind of trick it so that you have an extra coin. But of course, playing this means that you actually have 0 mana, so it's gonna have to be kind of tricky there. Another 2-drop for monks is the Golden Lotus card. It's basically a 2 mana 2/2 Frostwolf Grunt, or I think that's what the card is called. But if you actually focus it against Divine Shield, so it's kind of like what's that called? Enoratron, if you can actually focus this. It's a class card, so it has to be stronger than neutrals, and yeah, this is your you know, kind of bread and butter, if anything. Ancient Mistweaver is at 3, and it's 3 mana 3/3, kind of like Farseer. But if you actually focus this, you get to basically do like a mini Avenging Wrath heal on your dudes. Possible Light Warden value, I'm not really sure, but you know, definitely something to, like, you know, keep up your health against like aggro decks and whatnot. By the way, the theme of focus is that you cannot really focus all of your creatures, right? Sure, the early turns you can always focus your creatures, but in the later turns, like turn 8, turn 9, you can only focus one time. So you compare this with combo from rogues, right? So in a sense, rogues combos are actually a bit stronger because you can always combo it and it activates on, and focus only activates once. But the strong point of focus is that you can activate earlier game, like earlier. So that's the difference there. We have a 3-mana 1/5. Aspiring Student is every time you use your hero power, you gain 1 attack. And, well, remember, the Monk Hero Power base is at 1 mana as well already, right? So you could make like a 4-mana 2/5. If it actually lives, you can actually, you know, get on a little bit more. So hopefully you can abuse this because it's kind of like an Undertaker, right? Although it grows kind of slowly, it does have 5 health. Okay. Weapons Marshal is a 4-mana 2/5, and Battlecry gain 1 of Charge, Divine Shield, Taunt, or Wind Fury. So it's kind of random there. But if you focus it, it gains 2. So kind of random, but it does reward you for playing it. You kind of have to, like, you know, see what kind of combinations is adapt, right? So for example, if you've got Charge and Wind Fury, wow, that's pretty good. If you get Divine Shield and Taunt, that's pretty good as well. But some other stuff like Taunt and Wind Fury is kind of awkward, just playing a 2/5. This will be actually a very important card for another card in this set. So remember this card, that it can gain one or two of those both keywords. Dragon Turtle is a 4-mana 5/4, so it's kind of like a Lost Tall Strider. It's also a beast. And if you focus it, it turns into a 3/6 Taunt. So kind of like the Twilight Guardian that is coming up. So focusing doesn't really buff it. It's kind of like kind of a flex card. So you know, if you put this in, you might have a 3/6 Taunt compared to War Elemental and the Fire Guard Destroyer as in terms of stats. Okay. And once again, well, just notice that this is -2 attack, yeah. So it is actually a 3/6. Ethereal Soul Trader is a 5-mana 5/4. If you focus this, so it plays with 5 mana remaining, you can actually steal the Death Rattle from something. So very strong against decks that run Sylvanas, you know, high main, stuff like that. But very bad against like Face Hunter decks and stuff like that. There has to be like another way to deal with Death Rattles, I think. Right now, only Silence does it. So, you know, something else that actually deals with that stuff. It's really good. And of course, the dream is to steal the Death Rattle from a Sneasel Shredder. Now that would be awesome. Yeah, so remember the card that I told you to remember? Yeah, so this one is Battlecry. Gain Charge, Divine Shield, Taunt, and or Wind Fury if they exist on the battlefield. So if you actually have a lot of those stuff on the battlefield, this is basically an Alakir, right? Kind of. Maybe. It also works with like Doomhammer, right? If your opponent has a Doomhammer, you can actually gain Wind Fury because they exist on the battlefield. If you actually don't do anything with this is a 6-mana 4/6 is really bad. Even gaining 1 keyword seems like it's not that good. But some keywords are obviously better than others, right? So Divine Shield will be better than, for example, Taunt, and Charge is actually more reasonable than Wind Fury. So like, yeah, you gotta have to set this up a little bit more. Okay. The legendary for this class, well, the vanilla set, right? Because there's a classic set, is the Emperor's Call. You actually add a Celestial depending on what your hero power is currently. So you cast this for 4 mana, and then you get to basically draw a legendary. And of course, those of you who actually know the lore, Mists of Pandaria, you got the Celestials and whatnot. So if your hero power is a Stagger, and you cast the 5-mana spell, the 4-mana spell, you draw Neodal, which is a 5-mana taunt. It also Battlecries gives another minion taunt, kind of like the sparring partner that we just saw in TGT, right? It's a 4/12, so it's a very big body, and it has taunt itself. So you want to get this card when you are facing down, you know, for possibly stuff that can't silence your minions, right? So for example, like Temple Mage would be a good choice because they do not run silence or polymorph and stuff like that. You know, maybe Zoo is also kind of a reasonable choice. Hey, if you want to be more aggressive, why not take a Zurin if you have Surin? I'm not really sure how you pronounce that, but Tiger Strike. You have to have Tiger Strike active as your hero power before this actually happens. It's a 5-mana 5/9 with charge, and your other minions have +1 attack, so it's kind of like a Leok. Who knows? you can actually combo this with your hand, but once again, you do need to cast the 4 mana spell before. And yeah, that's the Tiger one, more aggressive. And for the Freeze Mage variant, for the you know, combo, you know, just destroy you. You can get Yulon if your hero power is Soothing Mist, and you actually get to, you know, have a mini Alexstrasza effect on your hero. So it's a 3/11, 5 mana card. Yeah, heals you when you can. And of course, you can ask yourself, oh, what happens if you Thought Steal Emperor's Call and you are actually not a monk, right? That kind of is useless. Well, don't worry, Chi-Ji is here. This is for other non-monk hero powers, so if you actually have a non-monk hero power, you will get this card no matter what when you cast Emperor's Call, and it is a super Ancient of Lore, 5 mana 6/4, Divine Shield, draw 2 cards. So in a sense, it's a 9 mana 6/4, draw 2 cards. So yeah, all the Celestials are pretty strong, and the basically the draw to it is that it's very flexible, right? You can actually get a, what's that called? You can get what you want depending on the situation. But of course, when you play this at turn 4, you actually do nothing at turn 4. So you're kind of like innovating out a Celestial. So that's the thing. Alright, onwards to the spells. Transcendence is a 0 mana spell. You shuffle your hand into your deck and draw the same amount. Very important because monks do need to find the right cards at the right time. If you don't focus it, you actually lose a card. But so usually you might want to use it when you have 0 mana and you actually just refresh your hand. But at the same time, you know, sometimes at a clutch situation where, you know, your opponent has lethal and you have no answers, you play this. Hopefully you get some answers. And of course, there's a chance to redraw the same cards. Well, we have the 1 mana spell, Jab, is deal 2 damage to a minion. And if you focus this, so if you cast this when you have 1 mana left, you get to draw a card as well. So kind of compared to Backstab, if you actually want to draw, you actually have to play it last. And that actually might screw up some things. So yeah, but definitely pretty strong. And, you know, good early game. Play this turn 1 against a Face Hunter. You know you got your Mortal Coil. And you can actually play this later to actually cycle it. Oh, Ascension! Oh man, we made this before Kodar Drake came out, and that's pretty cool. Because this is basically Kodar Drake. Essentially, you get to use your hero power unlimited uses this turn. It's a bit stronger in Monk, because your hero power is 1 mana. And because your hero power does change quite a bit, it has to change. You can't just use this and deal 9 damage to the face, because you actually have to recycle them. So yeah, hopefully you can, this is actually quite strong with Inspire, so I'm not really sure. When we made this card, Inspire wasn't a thing in TGT, right? I didn't know that Inspire would be a core card. So this might be, we might have to like make this 2 mana or even 3 mana. Maybe 2 mana is fine, because like, yeah, it works with Inspire, it's pretty insane. Well, if you want to be green and you want to like point to someone with a stick, you can play Revival. You put the last friendly minion that died on top of your deck, and if you focus it, you get to draw this well. So for example, I don't know, like you know, your Sylvanas dies and you play this, and you get your Sylvanas back. That's really, really strong once again. But and unfortunately, you have to like kind of like set this up, right? You can place this duplicate, and duplicate already works by itself and gives you 2 copies. So yeah, you gotta have to like once again do a little bit of setup for this one. You can provoke somebody, of course. That is a monk spell. You force an enemy minion to attack another random enemy minion. So you cannot force your own minion to get Wind Fury. That would be pretty silly. But it also only targets minions. It would be the dream if you can play this when your opponent has 2 Mountain Giants, of course. But otherwise, it might be a bit tricky to make this effective. But it's a 2 mana spell. It's kind of like a removal, if you may. So there you go. Obviously, you would not. You want your opponent's minions to hit their own minions. So if you have minions yourself, then yeah, it might be a bit awkward to play this. All right, Surging Mist. 2 mana is a heal spell. Restore 3 health to a minion and your hero. So kind of like Holy Light split into 2. And if you focus this, you get to give the minion +1/+1 as well. A little bit of a buff there. But once again, you do have to like buff it. And every class needs some kind of like a staple spell, so there you go. Crackling Jade Lightning is repeatedly sap something. Yeah, that's pretty cool. 2 mana, deal 2 damage to a random enemy minion, and if you actually kill it, you get to cast this again. Unfortunately, this does not work with Belcher because, you know, cards that have these effects actually just they actually resolve themselves before death rattles or something like that triggers. So you have to actually zap everything. But hey, if your opponent has everything that's only 2 health, well, you get a 2-mana consecrate. But unfortunately, if your opponent has a lot of high health creatures, this is just a deal 2 damage randomly and just do nothing. So pretty good against aggro decks. And we do need more cards that deal with aggro correctly. Spear Hand Strike is a 3-mana deal 3 anywhere you want, and if you actually cast this and you're exactly at 3 mana, you get 2 mana back, and you can actually use that 2 mana for something else. Kind of sneaky, where it's not just a 3 mana in game 2, for example. You do need to like set this up, and of course you can't just cast the 6 mana minion after you cast this, because you do need to focus this. So something... What can you do with 2 mana? Well, you know, a lot of things, so you have to say. A Touch of D? Oh man, if you Touch of D somebody, well, you deal 4 damage to it. But if you cast this at 3 mana, you can deal 44 damage, and that's a lot of death, right? Compare this to, like, I don't know, like Deadly Shot. You can compare this to Mulch, for example. It doesn't really kill Death Rattles too well. It doesn't really kill Divine Shields too well, that's for sure. But yeah, 44 damage against a Wrath Guard, and you just win the game. That's perfect. Exactly. And of course, deal 44 damage is still to a minion, right? You can't deal 44 damage to the face. That would be stupid. Oh man, we created this card before Echo of Medivh came out, so I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty proud of myself. But in the Monk context, it's actually pretty strong as well, because you have a lot of focus cards. You also have the Celestials. So if you actually Echo or Afterlife your Celestial, you actually get to play for 5 mana as well. So pretty strong. But of course, as we know, Echo of Medivh is not really that played that much. And when I actually made this card, everybody said it was OP. I'm pretty good at balancing cards, in my opinion. So yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty damn cool. Spinning Crane Kick. Kind of a reverse swipe, where you use 5 mana and deal 1 damage to an enemy minion, and then you deal 3 damage to all other enemies. You cannot target the face with this, so it's always deal 1 to something, and then deal 3 to the other stuff. Very bad if your opponent has only 1 thing, but hey, if you actually have a 1 health creature, and they have a lot of 3 health creatures, then this might come in handy. But this is the only AoE spell that Monk is gonna get, well, at least in the vanilla set. Hey, another touch! You like to get touch. Touch of Karma. 5 mana, silence a minion, but if you can focus it, it destroys it. So you can compare this to, like, Recycle, for example. You do need to focus it to actually destroy. You can compare it to Assassinate. If you do not focus this is absolutely just bad. Well, maybe you can use a 5 mana silence to actually go through taunts or whatnot, but obviously you want to use the focus ability correctly. Momentum is a Nourish, a 6 mana draw 3 cards. But if you actually get to focus it, so you actually play this on turn 6, or you play this when you have 6 mana, those cards cost 1 less. And you know what happens when cards cost 1 less in Monk, right? You get to focus something a little bit more. But once again, when you're at turn 6, going into turn 7, once again, you can only focus 1 thing at a time. Unless you know, get some tasty brews, unless you get some Spear Hand Strikes, stuff like that. And we have weapons for monks, because monks can use weapons. Audacious Staff is a 2 mana 1/2, so once again, you can trick the system into, like, doing multiple focus effects, and this is exactly it. Whenever you attack with this weapon, you gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. So kind of like Wild Growth, but it doesn't last forever. It only lasts for 2 turns. And actually, I think that Wild Growth should only last for, like, a set amount of turns. How it actually lasts forever makes it such a strong card, right? So this is a Wild Growth that lasts 2 turns, so it might as well give you 2 attack on the back of it. And yeah, activating focus a lot of times. That's pretty much why you want to do it. And for people just joining, of course, focus means if you actually spend all the mana playing that card, then it activates. Yeah. So you want to activate it a lot because you have Fist of Fury. Every time you activate the focus, it gains +1 attack. You actually have to activate it twice to become an Assassin's Blade, and you can also compare this to Poison Blade, where it actually kind of ramps up, and when it ramps up a lot, then you can actually hit your opponent for a lot. Alright, the next card is Life Cocoon, and this is also very interesting because we made this before Miss Color was a thing in TGT, yeah? Give all your minions in your hand +1/+1, another different type of Wild Growth. And yeah, we really like the Bolvar mechanic, so there you go. Alright, onwards to GvG. We got the Ancient Scarab, we got a mech for the Monk, 2 mana 2/3, Death Rattle, gain 1 mana Crystal, so once again you have the mana manipulation theme coming in. Now unfortunately, if your opponent kills this on their turn, you actually gain 1 mana, and then when your turn starts, well, it's not your turn anymore, it's not the same turn anymore, right? So you will want to kill this at your turn for it to actually work. So if you compare this to like the Nessus Aspirant is like much better. But it's a mech, so maybe you have some mech synergy with some other cards. Who knows? We have Energizing Brew at 3. Give 2 random friendly minions plus 3 health, and if you focus this, you gain taunt as well. So very, very good defensive card if you have if you have 2 minions. Of course, the drawback is that if you have only 1 friendly minion, you cannot cast this, similar to multi-shot. So if you play this, you better be playing a lot of small creatures, or maybe even tokens, that would be helpful. Hey, if you want to farm and get some bananas, now you can with a 3 mana 2/3. Battlecry Mukla for both players, so give both players 1 bananas. And it's actually not a grammar mistake because the card is actually called Bananas. And if you focus it, you steal your opponent's bananas. Oh baby. So why not gain 2 1 mana +1/+1s to actually help trigger your focus better, right? Triggering focus is also the whole main theme of Monk. So squeezing in that 1 mana is very important. And what a combo! You can actually coin Mukla into this, and you steal all your opponent's bananas. How about that? Mukla combo. Rocket Launcher! Oh baby! Yeah, discard the top card of your deck and then deal damage equal to its cost split amongst enemy characters. 20 damage Avenging Wrath, that is a sign me up. But you have to play Molten Giant, of course. It's an epic spell, who knows what will happen, and you actually do not draw the card like Holy Wrath, you actually discard it. So, you can compare it to like, I don't know, Arcane Missiles or Avenging Wrath. So if Arcane Missile steals 3, Avenging Wrath steals 8, this has to deal around somewhere like 4 to 5, to even 6 to make it work. So, there you go. Mecha Sabertooth. Whenever you use a hero part, add a spare part to your hand. We actually made this before TG was announced. So we actually changed the text now to inspire, add a spare card to your hand, spare part card to your hand. So there's another mech for the Monk if you actually want to go that direction. Elder Senpai. 5 mana 5/5. You battlecry, double the effectiveness of your hero power this turn. And basically, you can say, oh, what does double effectiveness mean? Well, basically, it's before TG was released, I was just like, yeah, just double the effectiveness, right? So you just gain 2 armor and deal 2 damage as a druid. If you're a monk, obviously, you can either heal 2, armor 2, or heal 2, armor 2, or deal 2 damage, right? So something like that. But now that TG is out, it's actually pretty cool because Battlecry changed your hero power to just the card True Hearts, the better hero power for this turn only. So that's actually a more elegant way to phrase it. So yeah. We got the Outcast Monk for 5 mana at Epic. Whenever you activate Focus, you cancel it and give this minion +2/+2 instead. So kind of like a Flowing Watcher, but you have to activate Focus. And you do not actually get the Focus effect. But then anything that grows by itself is really strong, really, really powerful. So, hey, who knows? Maybe you can play this in Arena. You can, buff this up a lot. And once again, you can trick the system, right? You can activate Focus multiple times. Someone said Worgens can't be monks, so that's why it's called the Outcast Monk, obviously. Come on. The GvG Legendary is Taranzu. Battlecry, give itself and all friendly minions +2/+2, so Synergies. If this is the leftmost card in your hand, what do you mean by leftmost? Well, when you play the game, you have actually an order of cards, right? So you actually have to play everything before you play this card, or you actually draw it early on, that's also fine. So you have to play everything from the left, shift this to the left, and then play it, and then you get a pretty good buff for 7 mana. Yep, hand manipulation is definitely quite good. Well, onwards to Black Rock Mountain. Oh baby, this is a new card. Well, at least for my concept anyways. Inner Vitality for 2 mana. Give a minion +1/+1 for each other minion on the battlefield. So it has to have at least 2 other minions, so 3 minions total for this to be a Mark of the Wild. But hey, it can actually be really, really good if you actually get to play like a lot of minions in Monk. And hey, who knows? You can actually burst something out. That would be a thing. And of course, what would Blackrock Mountain be if you actually do not get a dragon, right? So here is the Jade Serpents. 3 mana, 3/2. You focus it, it becomes a 3/4. And Battle Cry, if you're holding a dragon, you get to deal 2 damage, and you can get to do some disguised toast action. So yeah, both of the things can happen, and 3/4 that deals 2 damage is pretty insane. But also, none of the 2 can happen. Sometimes you do not hold a dragon, and sometimes you can't focus this as well, and it's 3 mana, 3/2, and it's stuck in your hand. Kind of weird, but activating both would be pretty insane. Of course, we do need 3 mana dragons. I don't think 3 mana dragons exist currently, right now. And there you go, 3 mana dragon. And finally, what we've been waiting for, the TGT cards. TGT cards for Monk are pretty cool. Let's start with Combat Conditioning, a 2 mana spell. Give the next minion you play this turn +4 health and taunt. Kind of similar to Mark of Nature, but you do need to play a minion directly after you play this card. What would be very sick was, for example, you use Golden Lotus Guard. You use this and then you use Golden Lotus Guard, and it becomes a 2/6 taunt with Divine Shield, and that is pretty insane. But you of course needs to you need to kind of set this up currently. You cannot use this at turn 2. And Mark of Nature you can use it at turn 3. You can't use this at turn 2. You have to use this at the turn you play something. We got the Outlands Sensei. Inspired, summon a 2/2 Shadowband trainee, and of course when you summon something it doesn't gain the battle cry. We just want to do this because, for example, if you can bounce it back with a panda, you can actually use this effect correctly, right? It's a 4 mana 3/2, it's very, very squishy, but if it actually survives on the field, it makes your hero power summon a 2/2, and that's really, really, really strong. Not to mention that you still get your hero power. So yeah, you gotta train some trainees, man. Yeah, sensei trainee. Got that kind of relationship going? Yeah. We got Lessons of the Past. You discard your hand and you draw 3 cards. Very, very important if you want to reload. And if you're playing Monk, well, sometimes you want to build a deck that's really, really cheap and just fizzles out. So why not pay 1 mana less for a Nourish? Obviously, if you play this in a Control Monk, it's really, really bad. You're probably not going to do that. So yeah, might not be in all decks, but something. The Meditating Monk is a very, very happy in this bubble. It's a 1 mana 3/3. It has taunt and it also has can't attack. Oh boy, what do we do with you? Very strong card against, like, aggro and, like, basically just stops them, right? Stops them dead in their tracks, and also trades fairly well with, like, a 3/2 and stuff like that. But obviously it can't attack, so it just sits there. Also pretty effective with, like, Inner Vitality, because a minions that sit there, well, you can buff it up. We have the Rising Sun Fist for 1 mana, deal 1 damage, and then the next spell you cast this turn costs 2 less. Kind of a split between a Preparation and just like a Moonfire, I guess. Once again, you can actually use this to kind of trick the focus mechanic. But, well, 1 mana, deal 1 damage is pretty abysmal. So, like, you have to actually make this, kind of abuse this secondary effect here for it to be useful. And the last rare we have in TGT is the Iron Hide Devil Sword. Oh man, another high main? 6 mana, 6/5. Death Rattle deals 6 damage to a random enemy minion. What is the dream? The dream is obviously to kill 2 things with it. You want to trade 2 for 1, and this card does exactly that. However, if your opponent has no minions, well, this doesn't do anything. They just remove it. You do not get 2 hyenas. If he actually trades 1 for 1, for example, they play Emperor, you play this, the Emperor could hit this, right? And then the Death Rattle doesn't do anything. So you actually have to, like, oh, I forgot the beast tag. It's actually a beast. Whoops, my bad. But yeah, it's actually a beast. So what's it called? Hunters can actually get this card from Web Spinner. And yeah, the dream is that you have to hit 2 things. I actually forgot the beast tag, my bad. Alright, but yeah, this is another class for monks, and come on, we need a Devil Sword that's playable. Nobody plays Tinkmaster anymore. Give me your Devil Swords. We got the epics now. The Unbound Shah is a 4 mana 3/3, and it has +1 attack for each time you use your hero power this game. Oh man, that means you want to spam your hero power a lot. A 4 mana 7/3, a 4 mana 10/3, a 4 mana unlimited power 3. Oh baby. Well, see what you can do with this. It is a Shah, so it does hit very, very hard, right? The second epic we have is the Corrupted Ancestor. It's a 3 mana 4/3, so it has correct stats. And your hero part becomes summon a 2/2 Shah instead. So once again, the monk hero part is 1 mana, and you actually change your hero part to a 2 mana hero part, 2 mana summon a 2/2. So if we compare this to like a paladin, it's obviously better. But obviously when this dies, you get your normal hero power back, and it also doesn't do anything by itself. So it does need a turn to ramp up. You can also play this turn 5, sure, 4/3 summon a 2/2. Not as effective as playing a Silverhand Knight, but hey, this hero power does stick around. So if you actually value this a lot, then you can do it. Alright, and the legendaries now. Oh man, we made 2 legendaries because hunters have 2 legendaries, and let me just say that monk is as cool, if not better, than hunters, okay? So 2 legendaries. The first one we have is the Shah of Anger. Oh man, 5 mana 4/5. All hero powers give +2/+2 to Shah of Anger. So your opponent's hero power becomes that, your own hero power becomes that as well. And it's a 2 mana, of course, buff it by +2/+2. So effectively, you're stopping your opponent from using the hero power. I mean, sure, they can still use the hero power if they want to buff their guy, but you know, it might not go too well with them. Obviously, one of the things you can do is you know, you play this, your opponent doesn't do anything, you press your hero power, it becomes a 6/7. Your opponent can actually hero power and then BG this guy. So it's kind of like an interesting mechanic there. They can actually abuse their hero power and BJ it and then use the hero power again. Because we know when your hero power changes, you can actually use it again. But hey, this is a legendary that can stop your opponent's hero powers. And finally, we have a second legendary. It's Gen Greymane. We definitely need more Worgens in the game, definitely. And what does this do? It's a 6 mana 6/6. If you focus this, you summon a 3/3 Raging Worgen for each card played earlier this turn. So it's kind of like an Edwin Van Cleave, but wolf pack style, alright? I mean, come on, Worgens hunt in packs just like wolves, and that's exactly what you are looking for to get. Obviously, if your deck is filled with a lot of small cost cards, you can summon a whole board full of Raging Worgens. Oh baby, just hope your opponent doesn't have a Hellfire or anything. And of course, man, if you play this against like something that's like really small, for example like a Zulok, man, your Raging Worgens are just gonna go everywhere, and that is going to be awesome. So there you go, guys. That's it. The end of the slideshow. I hope you guys enjoyed the monk concept, and we will do the Death Knight concept later this week, possibly tomorrow. But yeah, thanks for watching. Alright, well there you go. That was